the food here is horrible. It was way better in prison. And I'm like, ooh. So that was the last photo I took before
possibly
nearly dying.
before it being a statistic.
Yeah.
Whew. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Photo Stories. This is episode 4, and this one is sponsored and brought to you by Google One. Sorry if my hand is blocking my face, but instead of having a drink at 11 o'clock in the morning, not like we normally do, because we don't normally do that, we're having coffee instead. Today, our guest, I have no cast, our guest is none other than Jesse Driftwood.
Hello, everybody.
We have like a little, when you edit this, can you put like a little like a little like kind of applause, like when you
Yeah, throw some fireworks on.
Yeah, just make it a little fun. Jesse and I have known each other forever. I went to school with Jesse's sister when I was like 5,
4, yeah.
something like that. Shot his sister's wedding, and I sold Jesse his first camera.
Yep, Canon 7D. Cost way too much money.
Way too much money. I remember how mad your mom was when you tried to buy an extra CF card that you didn't budget in for.
$400 for 32 gigs. Yeah. You can have 12 photos.
Rest in peace. Those media days were insane. We were talking about how I paid $1,200 for a 16 gigabyte P2 card.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Look that up. That's how you used to film on an old HVX 200A.
Yeah. No, thank you.
But this isn't about filmmaking or memory. Today, memory as in memory cards. We're talking photo stories, the stories behind photos. And Jesse is, honestly, unbeknownst to a lot of you, a fantastic photographer. And one of the things that I give him crap for constantly
all the time
is not taking enough photos, because this dude is equally as good at photos as he is at filmmaking, if not better, to the point where when I was kind of phasing out my wedding business, Jesse actually worked for me a lot of the times, and he would come and take photos as my second shooter, do the videos as well. And then when I got out of it completely, anyone that emailed me for a wedding just went straight to Jesse for years.
Yeah, you kept saying it. Even when I was like done, they're like, "You want to shoot?" I was like, "No, I don't want to shoot."
I'm like, "Oh, I got nothing now. Sorry, guys." So we're gonna go through 5 photos each and talk about the stories behind each photo. All right, today we're drinking White Owl from James Coffee. I would have a golden hour, but I ran out because it's so good and I drink it all the time. A little red berry, vanilla and cocoa. It says a blend of washed and natural. You know, I gotta be honest. I love coffee.
Yeah.
I'm not always picking up the notes.
That's totally fair. And also, natural coffees are a bit bizarre.
Yeah.
So
sometimes if it's like Ethiopia, naturally sweeter.
Yeah,
then I get a little
notes or whatever.
A little more citrus, a little more fruity. But cheers, buddy.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming all the way from America, where you live.
I'm closer to Buffalo than I am to you. Let's start here. This is nothing special of a photo. It's a nice kind of standard CN Tower shot.
Very well balanced in light.
It's very bright and saturated. But the memory for me is just as fun, both on the taking of the photo side and the post-production side. So this was back in like the golden era of me actually making daily Instagram stories. And at that time, what was funny is brands left and right were inviting me to events because they knew I'd make a video that day. And if they were the most interesting thing, then that's what the story would be about. And so I was invited to some Gary V hyper
I remember
whatever
that you met him
conference.
for shoes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I was walking from that event, this big speaking event, to the shoe event, and I'm just walking. I was like, you know what? I don't take enough photos. I think I should take more photos.
Peter's always telling me.
He's always telling me to take more photos. And I see this spot, and it's actually a spot I had never noticed in the city where you just get a clear view framed in of the CN Tower.
I know the one spot in the financial district that everybody hits in that courtyard. But that spot is super famous. I've taken pictures. I've never seen this spot ever.
Yeah, I think this is on King Street or something, and you'll find out why you don't see a lot of pictures in this spot. There's actually like 14 electrical wires cutting across this entire photo.
Really?
Yeah. When I sent Zach the photo, my ex-business partner / still current very close friend.
Zach's great. Hi, Zach.
He was like, "You got to remove those wires." I don't know how to do that. I've never really gone into Photoshop to do that. Manipulation of photos.
There's no trace of them.
I don't have time to learn how to do this. He's like, "I'll do it." And so he removed every single wire from that photo for me and made sure all the lines on the building were still straight.
Dude, that's what I was looking for. I was looking for like a mismatch grout line.
Yep. No, and there isn't. And the photo is so much better. But let's be honest too,
not many people are looking for those types of inconsistencies in like an Instagram post.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, you want to start? I'll start with a heavy hitter on photo manipulation. Okay, so one of my favorite photographers growing up in photography, I guess you could say, and I've mentioned it before, Dave Hill. Okay, and he was big into composites, just over animated, crazy things floating and being abducted, and like the most insane campaigns. I remember a hotel in Vegas paid him to do a campaign about their like water park, and he had everybody with water guns, and there's like a million things happening.
Sounds
so
awesome.
Like, you could never do that in one frame. Every single person had their own shoot with like their own water gun, and it was all photoshopped in, and I wanted to like do that with a landscape photo. So, you know, when you start something and you just keep going and keep going, and you're like, wow, this is really getting out of hand. So this is the shot I came up with.
Oh my goodness.
Take a real close look.
I'm going to have to go around. Okay.
Yeah, dude. I put moss and stuff on the sides of buildings. I tried to make them look decayed. I have underwater going. I got a chopper going. I even burned like the clock tower. That's Old City Hall.
That's wild.
I burned it and got rid of like part of the building so it looks like the brick was even like crumbling from City Hall.
See, when I was thinking about taking out wires, I thought as soon as you start doing that, this is what your photo turns into.
Yeah. So one thing led to another, and then about 4 hours passed, and I was like, wow, I really got ahead of myself here.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not real.
Of course. Yeah.
I'm never going to post that and be like, dude, weather on Friday was gnarly.
Yeah.
Like, do you guys ever seen the city like this? It was underwater. There wasn't really any story on posting that, but like a lot of the times a great exercise is going back through old photos and finding something and doing something like this. So breathing new life into it.
Even this process, you know, from when you invited me to come do this, I was like, well, now I got to find 5 photos that I like. I've got to dive through my archives, which first of all, I have no archives. I have no data management system. I don't know where I keep photos.
So you have no organization?
No.
This is a great natural segue.
I have, I guess it is.
Well, this video is actually sponsored by Google One, and we can talk about how you can use that to fix your entire life and not have this problem anymore. So this video is brought to you by Google One, which is a paid membership for Photos, Drive, and Gmail. You'll have all the means necessary to add storage and save your photos online. Now, unlike Jesse here, who has never archived a single photo and has zero organization, that won't be you. Also, if you're using an Android, they offer VPN features built in for that extra layer of protection. Google Photos is supremely handy too when you're hanging out with people and you're talking about a story and they're like, oh, like that one time, like, oh, I've been there. Let me pull up a photo, and then you can never find anything. Well, with Google Photos, it's super easy to find things. You literally just type in the name or the word of whatever it is that you're looking for. It pops up. So it's easy not only to use as a gallery and a means to showcase your photos to people, but it also stores them so you're not eating up all that data on your phone or your hard drive. All the links are in the description below. You can download the Google One app or visit one.google.com. That's where you can explore more of it and check out their plans and all the stuff that they have to offer. So that's it, folks, all in one place. It's like they built it specifically for Jesse, or people like Jesse, because Jesse needs Google One. Jesse needs a lot more than Google One. We got to get him dialed. Links below, and thank you, Google, for sponsoring this video. Back to the stories. Sub drop bass hit.
I was saying, though, it's been fun to go through all my old photos. There's a lot of cool memories here. There's a lot of cool stories. I wish I revisited it more often. And I found a bunch of photos that I'm excited to go back, find the raws, and do an actual like a re-edit and just see what it like, see what my style has changed into, and see what skills I've evolved, you know, in the last 5 years since taking it, let's say.
I do a lot of that with the Pirate Life account. I'll go back and find landscapes from Iceland or somewhere that's moody that fits that vibe. I edited entirely differently for the Peter McKinnon brand.
Right.
And then I redo them in like this grungy pirate, grainy, just really old school film looking finish. Yeah. And it's so much fun to just see a totally different style, even knowing that it's not how I technically shoot, but it's like I'm crafting it for that brand.
Yeah, that's a cool. That's a cool just practice to get into.
Yeah,
I got into photography specifically because my mom was a photographer growing up. For me, what was always most important was that she had all these like family moments documented. Yeah. And back then, everything was shot on film, was much more of a hassle to do. You'd have to print photo albums. But growing up, I have these very strong memories, and so many of them are tied to photos. Now that I have a family and stuff, I take so many photos on my phone specifically.
Same.
that are just about the memory. And because when it's just about the memory, what you shot it on or the specifics of how sharp it is, it stops mattering because it just needs to light up your mind.
There's so many times my wife and I are sitting in bed just going through photos from 2017 of the kids, the videos, and just laughing. And not one time she's like, yo, look how good you nailed focus in this pic, Pete.
So this is a photo in the hospital with my wife when my daughter was born. And this is a real pivotal moment. It was pre-kids to post-kids. And we had some complications. So we spent a few days not only sharing this bed together.
Are those your feet?
Yeah, those are my feet.
No, they're not my feet. They're the doctor's feet.
It's a weird procedure. I'm not sure. He told me it was normal. It means so much to me to look back at this and remember being completely confined to this uncomfortable space, not knowing what we're doing.
Not in your home.
And yet there's a certain serenity to this photo, a certain amount of peace that you can feel. We were sharing the hotel room actually they must have been like teen parents. They were very young. So there's a curtain between us.
Okay.
We did not do a shared room the next child. But they were
lesson learned.
Listening to them was wild. The guy kept being like, oh, the food here is horrible. It was way better in prison. And I'm like, ooh, we're just trying to be a nice young family.
But look, all the memories just from like the conversation of the people next to you come back when you see it. Yeah. And that's what's cool. Yeah. No one ever's going to look at this and be like, did you shoot this on small JPEG? That's a great photo, man.
Thank you.
I'm going to show you this one. It's fitting because it's you. This was the first time Jesse and I have ever traveled internationally together. We went and spoke at the Power Video in Belfast. This was my second time speaking there. And we went on this like hike and we're going through the forest. And I wanted to take a portrait of Jesse and I wanted it to be like a badass portrait and, have him looking all stoic and legendary. And I was like, hey, I want to do a portrait. And I turned around and Jesse wasn't wearing shoes and his shirt was falling down and he was upside down doing a handstand in the middle of this waterfall. And I just thought there's no point correcting this because that's just who he is at his core. So often like this pops up on my phone as like memories of like people and on this day 3 years ago. And every time I see it, it makes me laugh because it just encompasses everything that I visualize as you.
I saw it and I was like, oh, that's so funny. I should tuck my shirt in when I'm doing this.
No, you should. Like half your stories, you're shirtless and you're naked in your current stories. Or like everyone was wearing shoes, but Jesse wasn't wearing shoes. And of course Jesse wasn't wearing shoes. And it's just not conforming to the typical.
Well, there are photos here that you can take that'll, they'll perform well.
Yeah.
And there are photos that you can take here that'll spark memories, right?
Yeah. And I never even posted that because I don't know. It was one of those photos that ended up just kind of like, I like that. That's just mine. Yeah. Classic Jesse.
Classic Jesse. So this photo also, the edit came from a JPEG because I lost the RAWs. And it was shot at like 8,000 ISO at f4 on a 5D. So the grain is...
But I love grain, dude.
Yeah.
I love grain. This looks fantastic.
Yeah. So it was cool. That was my first like travel gig. And I was brought out by this phone/iPad accessory manufacturer. Yeah.
Random.
It was so weird. I don't even know if they still exist. We can get into a lot here because this trip haunts me to this day because I never made the video. I think about it all the time.
I've got some bad stories like
Anyway, so they wanted us to use this phone grip thing and shoot out of one of those helicopters to get the city and show how cool the phone grip was. Yeah. The problem was setting up into the helicopter. They're like, you can't fly with these. They don't hold the phone. Like pilot would hold it and he'd shake it and the phone would fall out. He's like, the wind up there is so strong. This phone is going to come plummeting down and kill someone.
Or if it hits the tail rotor, we all die.
We all die. Yeah. Right. The owner of the company or whoever we were with was like kind of fighting them back and forth. And then eventually they were like, either use our clamps that are secure or you don't fly. And so that process meant we missed sunset, which they were all obviously wanting for the video that I didn't make. But but what ended up happening was we got to fly at a time they don't often fly or we weren't supposed to or whatever, which was during blue hour, which is my favorite light.
Yeah.
So you have these like contrasting colors of the blue sky and its reflection, and then the lights are turning on, and I just find it's one of my favorite times of
blue
day.
Hour is incredible.
It was like an iPhone 8 I was using, and how's that going to shoot sunset? The sun's going to be blown out. This isn't shot on an iPhone. That was on my i5D that I just happened to have.
I was going to say, that's incredible.
Yeah, no. And it was just such a funny experience for me.
What ISO did you say you shot at?
Over 5,000 for sure on a 5D Mark III.
That's what's great. I often forget to crank my ISO. There's so many instances where I'm like, I could just use a little more light. I'm like, oh yeah, it's 2021 and cameras can see in the dark.
Yeah.
Let's just ramp this up to like 10,000 ISO.
Right, and that's a camera from
12,800,
2011 or whatever.
You've probably seen it. I have literally gotten so many comments on the pirate account being like, yo, why is this photo compressed so much? Like Instagram ruined your photo. I'm like, no, that was me.
No, I did.
I slide that grain thing. It gives a certain feeling and emotion to the photos that you just can't achieve unless you shoot super high ISO or shoot film or medium format.
I'm not even sure why that is, but I've been using way more grain lately.
Yeah.
It kind of can just tie the photo together.
Stuff that's too sharp, I'm just not liking it too much. It's too much detail. It's too sharp. I want to like take more texture out of people's skin. Like, I don't want to see everything so vividly clear.
Yeah.
Here's some photos without grain.
Ooh.
That's the Arctic Circle. It was negative. It was like negative 80 from what the airplane said. And what's funny about this is it was taken from an airplane, but it wasn't taken by me. The pilot who was flying the plane, the commercial jet from Toronto to Hong Kong, took that photo.
Wow.
So I was trying to shoot out the airplane window and I just wasn't getting the angle I wanted.
Wait, so you're just on a commercial
just on a normal flight. Yeah,
That's
with my dad.
So funny.
I was just trying to shoot it and the window frame was being weird. You know, the glass changes and it's darker blue.
There's
and
two different layers.
I was like, this needs to be done from the cockpit, but they're never going to let me into the cockpit. Just some grown man being like, hey, can I come in with my camera and take photos? And you're like, no.
Unless you're Sean Duras and say it's your first flight
It's my first flight ever. Sean, you're such a legend. I preset all the exposure because it was like, again, it was kind of blue hour. The sun was already mostly down. We were about to fly over the ocean. I got all the settings ready and I called the stewardess over and I was like, is there any way, I know that you won't let me into the cockpit. I'm a photographer. It looks so good outside. I'm trying to take this photo. Can you or the pilot or anyone just take my camera and fire off? It's all set. All you have to do is just go in there and push the button. And she's like, I'll ask. Like, I'm not sure. And I'm like, just literally just push the button. That's all you have to do. So she took my camera and came back 10 minutes later and I went through all the photos and there was a whole bunch. She's like, the pilot just took a whole bunch. He was taking pictures of his maps, of all the he was just loving it. Probably, I don't know if he should have been doing it, but he did. I obviously cropped them all in and then spent the rest of the flight editing some of the photos, but it ended up being one of my favorite photos from the trip and I didn't even take it.
That's so
But
funny.
I feel like I had a part in making the photo happen.
You should print a whole book of just photos that pilot took. Just his instruments. So here's a photo. Unfortunately, it's like the only one I took from here. This is obviously in Iceland. These like, I don't know if they're wild horses or if they're kind of owned by someone, but
by Iceland?
Yeah, the Iceland, that's their horses. But we had kind of just hiked out to here and all of a sudden like these horses showed up and we're like, whoa, this is so cool. And Zach, again, he has his camera bag on the ground open, just switching lenses, taking some photos, and I was shooting some video. And the horses surround his camera bag and they start biting it and like nipping at it. There's no food in there or anything. It doesn't smell like food. It's just a camera bag. And they start biting it and picking it up off the ground and kind of throwing his camera bag. And we don't want to get close. I don't want to get kicked by a horse, but also please don't break all of my camera gear. And so we're doing this dance. We're like trying to get closer, but not, we like want to scare them away, but not scare them away. It probably took like 30, 45 minutes. And then eventually, for some reason, they just got uninterested and walked away and all of his gear was good.
So every single picture of those horses that I've seen they're so epic and they're so Iceland and they're so moody and the light just shines off of them.
Yeah. And the whole time we were there, it was very overcast, very gray.
Same. There's like no place I've ever been that looks so unworldly, like another planet. It just gave me a feeling that I've never had before when traveling. I literally cannot wait to go back.
Yeah, that was also my first photo trip. Like I'd never gone on something like that.
I remember when you went.
Yeah.
You made some vlogs there before you were like a YouTuber.
I was YouTubing, yeah.
Before like, I think even I was vlogging or anything, you were vlogging there.
I didn't know what to do, so I made these videos. It really solidified for me that photo video is a passion of mine. Like I'll spend money and I'll fly somewhere just to document this. If someone says, hey, you want to wake up for sunrise and you want to go shoot the sunrise with me tomorrow? I'm like, I mean, maybe.
Probably
but
not.
if someone goes, hey, you want to wake up at 5 a.m. and do this hike, like just to see the sunrise? I'm like, all right, yeah. I'll bring my camera and shoot it. You have to trick me. You have to make me think there's an experience first that I want to shoot.
And those will end up probably yielding better photos and better memories. Versus just like, I'm going specifically because I need some Instagram photos. And that's not even fun. Then you end up being like, okay, well, let's hit this spot, this spot, this spot. Check, check, check. Let's go home, edit, post.
Yeah, the photos have always been about the story and the experience for me.
Absolutely. Okay. We'll start with this one. So that's David Kennedy, super close friend of mine. This is David James Kennedy, James Coffee, the owner of James Coffee and guitarist in Angels and Airwaves, which is him playing live. So this night here is probably one of the greatest experiences I've ever had using my camera. I've grown up a Blink-182 fan. I've grown up an Angels and Airwaves fan.
They changed my life.
Had pictures of Tom DeLonge on my wall. The Adventure is like one of the greatest songs ever. I just love it so much. Walked into my wedding to that song. Like it's incredible. So to come from a spot where their posters were on my wall to being on stage during this photo while they're playing The Adventure and like filming while they're rocking out around me, I felt like I was rocking out with them to The Adventure on stage.
So wild.
It was one of the best feelings ever. It was such a good show. Everyone came off super pumped. David was like, dude, never did I expect that I'd get to rock out to The Adventure with you on stage while you're filming. Like we were all just so amped.
Your whole life comes full circle right there.
Yeah, it really did. And then this photo is when we were hanging out in San Diego doing just runs to his coffee places and roasting coffee and stuff like that. And he drives an old Chevy C10. So it's an old vintage truck and it's sick. The second I got in it, I was like, yo, this is incredible. Right? And I remember we were on the street waiting for tacos and this dude just walked up like, how much for the Chevy? And he's like, not for sale. They're like, just whatever, how much? And he's like, not for sale. And I was like, does that happen all the time? And he's like, dude, all the time. And he had it restored, fixed up and Bluetooth and everything. And I was like, that's so cool. And he's such a cool guy and a rock star because he doesn't try to be a cool guy and a rock star.
Right.
And he, in a sense, kind of feels like a bit of a bigger brother to me. I'm just like super grateful to have this friendship. And he just kind of looks like me a little bit.
Like, it's cool how many different ways he's inspired you through your life.
So many ways.
Just down to the truck.
Just down to the truck. So like recently I, as you know, bought like a vintage truck as well. And it was highly inspired from him. And he's seen all the photos of it and I've kept him up to date with it. And we've got such a close connection now with James Coffee and all the stuff that we do together to the point where fans come in to his shop to find me.
Yeah.
And they're like, does Peter own James Coffee? And he just, he's just like, yep.
Yeah.
I'm like, why do you say yes? He's like, I'm not going to get into the story of our relationship. So I just say yes. It's easier.
I mean, photos of people are just so important to me. I'm not major into portraiture necessarily.
No, me neither. But like, it's so many memories. And like, I look at this photo and it reminds me of like how much this dude means to me and how much he's influenced me and how much I care about him. Cheers, David.
To David.
To David.
Not a special photograph, very special memory. That's my friend Matt. He's riding a bike down a dirt road.
Okay.
That's basically all the photo is.
Sure.
I think this is back in 2014. Me, Matt, and Zach, again, were on a bike trip. So we rode from Toronto to Ottawa.
Did you actually?
Yeah, I've done a few.
Of course.
And I never do anything with the pictures.
Of course.
But there was one night where we knew we were going to stay that night and the light was fading really quickly. And we're looking at the map ahead of us and we're like, I don't think we can make it. But on Google Maps, we see there is a line that cuts through. That could shave us like an hour of today's trip. And if it does, we would get there before dark. We wouldn't be lost in nowhere. There's no street lights out here. We're just...
Famous last words?
Famous last words. So we find this street. We turn down.
It would only happen to you.
I know.
Well. It would have connected if it was me.
Yeah, it would have. The same road would have connected.
Would have been there.
So we get 11 kilometers in.
Yeah.
Just into this like dirt road. And then all of a sudden it kind of comes to an end and there's just one property. And on this property, there's dogs going wild. Just like, because why is anyone out here?
Chain links rattling.
No one should be out here. And we're like, oh no. There's like a bit of a mud path ahead of us, but we couldn't bike on that, not with all of our gear. And then there's just like, there's guys drinking around a fire and just dogs going nuts. So we're like, I think we have to talk to them. We're like, hey, sorry to bother you.
What's up, guys?
Excuse me. And they come out and we tell them the story. Like, we thought this was a shortcut. We cut through and they're like, oh, no worries. We'll give you a drive. These guys are all like, they've been drinking a lot. They throw us into their pickup truck, bikes in the back.
Oh, man.
They grab road beers because they're just like on their property. So it's like they just own all this land. And that's their own off-roading.
Accidents can happen close to home.
Listen, I condone none of this. Yeah. And so while we're in the truck with like 3 of their friends up front or 2 of their friends, they have other friends in one of those Can-Am 2-seater side-by-side things.
Sick.
Also drinking, ripping circles around the truck like they're the moon to our
and
Earth.
I'm the one that flips it and breaks my fingers.
Yeah. I don't understand what's going on, but we're like, we're in a stranger's truck. They are drinking and we're being circled by off-road vehicles. And we were just like,
awesome.
We're like quiet and shy in the back. Like, I don't know what to do here. We have one tiny phone clip from being in the back, just like bouncing around on roads we could never have biked through. And they got us through and they were so nice. They were so kind. Yeah. And they brought us like further than they needed to. And they're like, yeah, you're just up the road here a few
head
kilometers.
On that way and you're good to go.
And we're like, and that's it. So that was the last photo I took before
possibly
nearly dying. Before being abducted or...
before being a statistic.
Yeah.
Whew. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool because seemingly like the photo's fine.
Yeah.
You look at it, you would never expect the story behind it.
In retrospect too, I want to be more bold with taking photos. I wish I took photos in the back of the vehicle.
Yeah.
And just told them, hey, do you mind if I take some like...
I've always been pretty good at that.
Yeah.
I remember back when I worked at the camera shop, like the SWAT team came in looking for a scope for something. And I was like, those guys look so cool. My friend's like, what are you doing? I'm like, putting a camera together. And I just grabbed one off the shelf and I was like, hey, can I take some portraits of you guys outside? And they were like, I'm like, I'll Photoshop your badges out so you can't see the numbers. They're like, sure.
Wow.
And then I walked out with them and they were like, hop in.
Yeah.
And I got in like their SUV and they're like, this is where we keep this stuff. Like, let's go for a little ride. And I was like, okay. Then those guys became my friends. Then they gave me a bunch of gifts for like my wedding and I still talk to them today.
That's
And
so
it's just because
cool.
I was like, can I take some photos of you guys?
Yeah. So that's one thing I've been working on is just trying to be like, ask. If they say no, then you don't, and you haven't offended them. You haven't
Exactly.
been rude. Just be like, hey,
Yeah.
do you mind? Just for
Yeah.
memories or
and if
whatever.
they do, then you're laughing.
Yeah.
Sick. So this photo, it's not like best photo you've ever seen, but it's more of like a story of perseverance. So classic shot
Yeah,
of the
beautiful.
Golden Gate. Sun coming over the grass there just looks so nice. You got a bit of like pink sunset in the background. The bridge is popping. The conditions were just mint.
Yeah.
This was about the 5th time to San Francisco shooting this bridge where I finally was able to actually get the photo.
Really?
First time I went there, overcast, fully engulfed in fog. Sound familiar? Next time, way too bright, midday, just blue skies, just ugly. We were there for like the 5th time because I just, like the company I worked for was based out of San Francisco. So we were there all the time. It was the same thing. Sunset, we woke up, me and my buddy Mike, and I was like, do you want to do the Golden Gate again? And he's
Yeah.
like, no. So we didn't. We decided not to. And then that night, the sun was kind of looking decent. I was like, yo, this is last time. I know we've
Right.
tried to shoot this like 4 times. He's like, dude, every time we go there, it sucks. So like, I'm just over it. Let's just find something
Right. If
better
this one
to
doesn't
shoot.
work, the bridge is dead to us.
Yeah, and I was like, let's just do like one more time, dude. Let's hit sunset. If it works, it works. And we got there and I could see the sun on the grass already. And I was like, oh, this is the moment. So that shot was like 3 years in the making and it wasn't even that crazy. It's everyone gets that shot. It's just one of the ones like I wanted to get it as well. It was like at the time, the best photo I'd ever taken. But
You know what? I love that it's in like direct sunlight. Shooting into the sun is fun, you know, and
Yeah.
backlighting things is fun. But there's something about direct sunlight that like hyper saturates colors.
Yeah.
And especially in this world now is actually less common now that more people are shooting into the sun.
yeah, it was so easy to bail on for like the 4th time, being like, dude, we've been here for like, who cares? I'm over it. I've been to that bridge. I don't even care to go back. There's 100 photographers there with their tripods out all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, let's just push past that and get it done. And we did. And that's usually where like your favorite and the most meaningful shots come from.
Imagine that like almost euphoric feeling when you
Yeah.
snap and you're like,
Yeah. And you're on the car ride on the way home, someone else is driving, you're just looking at it. And then what I do sometimes when you know I really like it, I take a picture of the back of my screen and I send that to like 6 friends.
so many photos like that.
Yeah.
That's so
I
funny.
send that to 6 friends and they're like, oh, and I'm like, not even edited yet.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh,
yeah, we
man.
know the camera's in the shot.
Yeah. I think the last shot I was really like that hyped on was probably the bucket shot.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember seeing that in the back of the screen and being like, oh, finally. Finally did
finally.
it. Finally got it. Showed Kirk and he's like, there it is. I'm like, let's go home. The feeling of, I just love photography. I
Yeah.
just love it for all these reasons. And doing these episodes really reminds me about how passionately I feel about it. So
Honestly,
hopefully,
this whole process has just reminded me, A, how much I love photography.
Yeah.
How much I love the memories it spurs, even
Yeah.
the memories outside of the photograph.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And how much more I really do want to do more photography. I really miss just going out only to shoot photos.
Yeah.
Not to make a video.
Yep.
Not to
That's the main
document
thing.
how to shoot the photo.
yeah,
Just to shoot the
or
photo.
use the technique you use. Just go out and act your passion.
Yeah.
So guys, that's it for this episode of Photo Stories. Thank you to Jesse Driftwood for coming out and sharing all those insights and stories and stuff like that. If you don't follow him, well, come on. Dude, this dude is probably one of the best creators on YouTube for so many reasons and beyond YouTube. So I left all his stuff below so you can check him out on Instagram, YouTube. Thank you again for coming out. Really appreciate it. And yeah, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you in the next video. Bye. All day. Why do you think I never post videos anymore? I'm just lighting candles, drinking coffee, spinning coins.
Yeah.
Flipping my knife. I don't know if I ever... Look at that. Progress. Progress. Oh. Yes.
Dude, it's so fun getting out to here and like actually just hang out.
Yeah. And cut.